Bloc Québécois, their leader, Yves-François Blanchet, will spend the entirety of his campaign in Quebec, to no surprise, the only province in which the Bloc runs candidates. So if he's prime minister, something crazy happened. Today, he is in Quebec City, where he's questioning the tax cuts promises from both the Liberal and Conservative leaders.
How the hell do you intend to do that? One of the parties says, we will cut the expenses. Okay, is it the right time to cut the expenses when the moment is more appropriate to support enterprise companies and jobs? And the other party says we will cut expenses and we will cut taxes. There's no way on earth one can manage that.
Blanchet says both the frontrunners need to explain how they'll pay for their tax cut proposals. And the CBC's Raffy Boudjikanian is traveling with the Bloc leader. Raffy.
David, Yves-François Blanchet's struggle is to stay relevant in an election campaign that's so far largely been about who is best placed to take on Donald Trump. Blanchet's pitched today a private members bill that would force the federal government to prioritize domestic providers in federal government contracts. Blanchet is also seizing on the Liberals balking at paying a $75,000 participation fee to take part in a French language debate that would have been held by the French private network TVA, an event that may not happen now. Blanchet says Mark Carney must be afraid of facing off against him and is accusing Carney of robbing him of a platform to connect with Quebecers. Now, Blanchet will still have his chance at the other French language debate, which is scheduled for April 16th. Coincidentally, his birthday, a rare gift for a leader that could be squeezed out of this campaign. David?
Okay, that's the CBC's Raffy Boudjikanian in Quebec City. So look, all of these leaders are going to have a chance to square off in debates, and we got details today on when the leaders' debates will be during this election campaign. The French debate will be held on April 16th, and the English debate a day later on April 17th. They will both take place in Montreal. But we also learned today that the Liberal Party will not be participating in a debate that was trying to be organized by the private French language network TVA. Raffy mentioned it there. That debate had a $75,000 price tag. The party had to pay $75,000 to participate. Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet is accusing Mark Carney and the Liberals of being scared.
So far, I don't know what he's not afraid of. This guy is supposed to be strong enough to face Donald Trump, which is one of the biggest threats on democracy and freedom for a long time. I will face the guy. And then we say, hey, come in Quebec and discuss with us because you want us to vote for you. Oh, I won't go. I'm saying to him, hey, let's come and face the music.
Okay, face the music. Vandana, I'll let you respond to that allegation as the Liberal in the room right now, but I just have to ask Wiley, does anyone ever heard of a debate you were invited to as a political party that you had to pay a cover charge to participate in? $75,000. I've never heard of that, Rob. Like, no. You know, if you organize it, you pay it, right? You host it.
Often in the United States and in other countries as well. Yeah. This debate is sponsored by, in other words, people put up the money, rent a hall, in order to get the politicians to come and tell citizens what they're going to do, how they're going to be governed. Never heard of this before. That being said, it is a disadvantage for Mr. Carney to debate in French. His French is labored. I know other people disagree with me, some others in the punditocracy. The question is whether or not Quebecers care about that. Up until now, all of the evidence that I've seen, all the research I've seen, suggests no. Since early 1990s, and yes, I was here in the early 1990s, Quebecers have, in effect, since the collapse of the Meech Lake Accord, they've opted out of federal politics. Large swaths of the province have. And they've decided that they are going to look after their own interest and invest in people who will look after Quebec's interest. Donald Trump has changed a 30-year-old pattern. Okay, Quebecers are not content just to look after their own interest. They're worried about their language. They're worried about their culture. And who is protecting their language and culture right now? A barely bilingual Anglophone, they think, is the one who is going to provide the ring fence around the language and culture of Quebec.
Right.
And the federal system is going to do that. So it's really fascinating for somebody like me who began their career worrying about national unity coming out of Quebec. how that's changed and how Quebecers' votes are shifting as a result of it.
Right. Well, look, I do want to go to Vandana, but we're all clear. No one's ever heard of a debate where you had to pay to play, right? No. Like that just doesn't happen. When you're like, okay, all right, because that strikes me as strange. So Vandana, is it that the Liberals don't have $75,000, or they only want to do two debates, or what?
We got some cash now.
Yeah. Mr. Blanchet says it's because Mr. Carney is scarce.
I think Mr. Carney is a tough leader who could not be shaken down. And I think there's many ways to connect with Quebecers. Listen, you'll have a French debate. I will revisit Chantal Hébert's tweet that happened shortly after the French debate during the leadership, and she said, "I love how people." This is not you, Rob, but people who have high school French or evaluating his French, where she was like, "It's." For some Quebecers, it's fine. I live in Quebec. I speak French every day. Is it perfect? Probably not. But do people appreciate it? Most importantly, do you understand Quebec? Do you understand Quebec culture? Do you understand what's important to Quebecers? The environment's very important to Quebec. He's talked about the environment at length. He's even got Legault talking about, we can meet there with a pipeline. That's changing sentiment, to Rob's point. So I think it's just more for the resources you need to prep for debate from a pure campaign operative lens, it's just kind of a waste of time. I rather spend that time talking to Quebecers on the ground, sitting them with rooms, meeting them to where they are, rather than going to a place where there's debate, where while there are some moments for debates, a lot of it can be scripted and may not really answer what Quebecers are looking for. So I think it's just a smart, practical decision for the campaign.
Lisa Pierre Poilievre also has said it's because Mark Carney doesn't want to debate him in French. With a 35, 36-day campaign, 37th day for voting, English debate, French debate, do you need another debate? What do you make of this whole controversy here?
Yeah, so regardless of what the leaders are saying about the motivation, if it was money, Vandana, we would have started a GoFundMe for you. It would have been all good, but I understand. Right. But here's the interesting thing for me. It's a risk analysis, okay? You are risking not being able to communicate with Quebecers at a time that's very important, because as you pointed out already, it's those last 3 weeks of the campaign in Quebec where people suddenly decide which way they're going to go. Why wouldn't you want to have an extra shot at talking to Quebecers? And the mistakes that you can make in explaining why you didn't want to do the TVA debate could actually be more detrimental than the fact that you're not doing the debate, like saying things along the lines of, well, we don't really need to talk to them, or we're going to talk to them in another way. Anything you do that could possibly put the Quebec nose at a joint at this point in time, I think is a really risky venture. So we'll see if the risk pays off. I don't know why they wouldn't want to do it. There's all kinds of a plethora of reason, and we'll let all the leaders weigh in on that, why. But the other side of the equation of is what happens if Quebecers just really think that, well, you don't think a lot of us in order to come in. What's $75,000 to come in and talk to Quebec directly? That is a judgment call that they've made, and it could prove to be the wrong way.
Yeah, look, I don't know, Brad, if Quebecers will feel that way. I will, leave that to Quebecers to make up their own mind, like they will about Mark Carney's French, which is much better than mine. But a cover charge is a strange thing for me. I look at the world of journalism. I know I say this from the privileged perch of a national public broadcaster, where we do get, a parliamentary appropriation, but that's an unusual move. And I know the NDP were uncomfortable with it in my conversations with them. But how do you think, is this a vulnerability for Mark Carney and the Liberals in Quebec now that they were the one who said no, and because of that, the debate is cancelled entirely?
No, I'm going to say no, it's not. Because there is going to be a French debate and there is going to be an English debate.
Yes.
And most Canadians will probably say, look, one debate, as long as there's a debate in the French language, and I like the fact that they're in Montreal, that's good. Ottawa or Montreal makes perfect sense. So I think most Canadians are going to say, gee, guys, I've got a lot on my plate here. Really? So just on your point, the $75,000 ransom that TVA was asking for is just, that is outrageous. And I think that I don't even know if it would have held up appeals, whether or not the public airwaves and the ability to...
There's a fair access requirement, right?
Exactly. So, I don't know what level or what agency would regulate this, but it may not. But it's so offensive that somebody would say, we want to hold a debate, and we're going to charge you a lot of money for it. And we put the money up too because we got the hill to climb that the New Democrats do. We'll take every opportunity. But at the end of the day, I think this is going to be a blip. 36-day campaign here. We're on day 2. There's going to be a lot of issues we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about tariffs. We're going to be talking about the economy, jobs. We're going to be talking about all this kind of stuff. So I think this is a process story. And to be honest, as a practitioner, I would say Carney doesn't have to do two French. If he has a vulnerability with his French language, or if he wants to get the message across to Quebecers, a debate, especially when you got to pay $75,000 to get in, is the worst way to do it. I would plow all the money into ads that speak direct into
or do a sit down with TVA, or do a sit down with Patrice, or
there's so many ways to get your message across that is better than a second debate. I'm not voting for him, but I think he's fine.
If you're a reporter, you want as many debates as possible. But why not a debate in Atlantic Canada then, if French Canada? Why not a debate in Western Canada, given the resource issues that are at play? Have as many debates as possible. I cannot construct a logical argument why you would have a second debate in the province of Quebec in French and tithe people in order to get
I believe when you brought me up here in 2015 to fill in the big, long election, that this is the conversation we had, but like, why not regional debates, an Atlantic-focused debate, a Quebec, because the language divide becomes really a Quebec debate where you're talking about even Quebec infrastructure.
We used to have a lot more debates, right?
Yeah.
This is a whole new thing. But I think what they have done, they've given Mr. Blanchet a massive stick to beat up Mark Carney with in Quebec. I think they've handed it to him. And it's whether or not he does something with it is the question. But I think it's still a risk.
Well, it was the debate in 2021 that gave his campaign some life, right? Because Vendredi was asked some questions by the moderator that sort of inflamed the Bloc Québécois base in Quebec, and that had been dormant to that point.
Right, and that goes back to, do you understand Quebecers? And how they think and how they function. I think Mr. Carney will be able to do that in the French debate successfully. I don't think he needs more than that. I think there's a lot of options, to Brad's point. Interviews, sit-downs, going to the ridings, talking to people directly. That's going to make the most difference, right? Ads, there's a number of ways you can micro-target Quebecers in a message that works for them. I don't think the TVA debate, I think that's a today story. Maybe goes to tomorrow, and I think it disappears after that.